don't think there's gonna be a Dream of Spring.
No, man, I've been joking that, you know, he's written them both, and he's waiting for the show to be over. I do think he's waiting for the show to be over for Wins, obviously.
I don't think so.
I do. I think it's pretty much done. I mean, I know he's probably. I'm not saying he's not still moving things around or adding things or chopping it out, whatever. I'm sure but I think the basic book has been done for a while, and that's why I said, actually on the live stream last night and the week before when somebody brought up a question. I do think that we saw some Dream of Spring material, and people just don't want to admit that. And they'll see that when the book comes out in the last couple of seasons where, you know, they went so far off script and it was their own thing. They were trying to make it up as they go, and they just want to leave the show and they don't want to do it anymore. All those things people like to do. Not like, again, I'm not defending Dan and Dave. They're not perfect. There's been some problems, but I do think that they have more material than people would like to admit.
Yeah, and they are essentially adapting a show that George actually wrote kind of out of spite to make a story that could never be adapted to television or film. Don't you think it's kind of odd that he gave this masterpiece to such unexperienced creators? I mean, I do to an extent, because I actually when I did the little Star Wars Dan and Dave video a week ago or so, I brought up a little, because I'd seen a million videos where people said, "Oh, Dan and Dave are going to Star Wars. Here it goes." Well, first of all, you can't get any worse than Last Jedi. Number two is, I actually put in that video. Oh, well, let's take a subjective look at Dan and Dave's career. They didn't do a lot. They hadn't done a lot. They've done a few things. I think David, Thieves, Troy.
Right. Troy, that was pretty much it. Were those, and that was from like David, right? So not DB Weiss. So his resume is even less impressive as far as what they've done. So it is interesting, but I guess it all goes back to, I'll just have to take Germ's word for it in all the interviews where he said they had such a great conversation, that first meeting that lasted 5 or 6 hours, and they answered the RLJ question and all that stuff. I'll just have to take his word for it.
I could have done that though. I mean, I'm good. I would. Oh, dude, Dorn times 50. Just nothing but shitty water garden fights, man. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Bron and Jamie on adventures, but I mean, because here's the thing: George has had kind of a career of ups and downs. You can see it in his works. He has had axe to grind with Hollywood. Because I mean, who do you think benefits more, the show or the book? Give this crazy ass story to enthusiastic young men that HBO was willing to give millions upon millions of dollars to. I don't think it's right to shit on them as much, but I think there are some clear narrative issues that are unacceptable.
No doubt. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not defending. I'm just, it's just so easy to bash on Dan and Dave as a book snob or whatever you want to say.
But yeah, I don't think it's just bring up when they fuck up and bring up when they do good.
Right. Say, but exactly. Because even George R. R. Martin himself has admitted in several interviews that there were little parts that he's like, damn, I wish I'd have thought of that. So I mean, clearly it goes both ways.
I think that he wrote himself into a corner in Essos, and he is still trying to write himself out. When we look at the story where we're at right now, I believe first off that the battle for the Long Night is going to end max. It'll last 3 episodes. I think it'll be done quick, and then we'll move on to Cersei. The villains of this story have always been them. One of my big concerns is everybody is waiting for the big twist with the White Walkers. I'm a little afraid that we already got that. And are we supposed to just feel all this empathy for them because of how they were created? Is that all we're going to get? Do you think there's an actual chance of that's all we get and that is going to be just a straight up fight?
I would be extremely pissed off, and I think a lot of people would, if they opened up this, not only the show with the White Walkers, but the prologue of Game of Thrones, and there was no real big payoff as to what his intentions are now. Why now? What's going on? If they don't pay that off, then they will have destroyed this series. It can't be. I just can't see how they could build this up, and you had all the little reminders throughout the seasons and the books in the background that, with the magic and the threat beyond the wall, etc. And then they go into the final season and just kill the Night King and somehow figure out a way to kill him, and don't really explain why he's there, why he's back now versus why not 3,000 years ago. There were dragons around. I mean, why not, 200 years ago, there were still a few dragons around. They have to explain that, and if they don't, they will have ruined this series.
But how, with the limited time that they have set for themselves, which are like, hey, we took, like 3 seasons to get Arya like across Westeros, and now they're to finish the rest of the story, 2 books worth, 6 episodes. Well, they'll be like 7 minutes long a piece, like 7 minutes longer. Like, how much time do we have for a Dream of Spring? How much time do we have for a fleshed out White Walker story? I am a little worried that they played their empathy card. They're like, but look, they were created. I mean, it's kind of like, creating your own like weapons of mass destruction. I mean, like, how much time do they have? What could they really do other than another flashback? I mean, the Children of the Forest aren't well enough developed to really bring into this. And there's no heavy book stuff that they've really implicated into the story that could really, in my opinion, in 6 episodes, make sense out of it. They would have to introduce a lot of aspects that are only present in the books out of the blue. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think they, with the longer episodes, and I don't think anybody's confirmed how long they're actually going to be, but I do think they have time if they do it right, because essentially everything's really just set up in there. The only thing they really have to finish up is, as far as the main characters, is getting Dany to Winterfell and that whole introduction done and all that, and then they can really focus on the end game. So I think they still have time to, for example, if you watch my stuff, my theory, I don't know if it'll be a show thing, but the God's Eye could still be introduced. It was mentioned a couple times in passing, so they could still do stuff like that. And it would have to, I would imagine, you got to do some Bran flashback stuff to. There's going to be another twist. They've already said that, and that should be season 8. And I can't think of anything that it could be other than the Night King and what his intentions are, or whatever. And we get that reveal with Bran, maybe. I don't know. It's not obviously the conversation about Jon, because we've already been told that the audience has already knows. Bran already knows, so it's got to be related to the Night King. Yeah. It's got to be something. Not that they're all good and benevolent and they're just doing it to protect the realms, type of thing. Again, we're going back to the tropes thing. There are bad people in this story. Yeah. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see why I don't see how it can't be. I would say that it's certainly possible for Cersei to outlast him, but I don't know. I'm still kind of up in the air about that one.
I totally agree. The whole integrity of this story depends on how they handle the Night King, and I find it a little bit risky that they have not addressed it yet, and they're just gonna slam it into us through the Bran 3000. But whatever. Let's hope for the best. I do see Sansa actually being the one combating Cersei for sure. Because Jon is necessarily, he's the ace, he's the action hero, but he is not necessarily, he's the chosen one. He's the one that's already been resurrected. They've kind of sped up his, like the regular timeline for his character. But it does lead me to believe that, like, he will not be the hero. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with me, but I don't know if Dany will be either. I see a lot of destruction, and I see them understanding finally that they're paying dearly, even more so than if there wasn't the Night King coming, because of the War of the Five Kings. And like, I forget what the time span is, but I believe it's like they only had like 12 or 14 years of peace in the last like 110 years or some shit. You know what I mean? Like they've been nonstop killing each other, just building that army for him. So I mean, it's an anti-war story. That's one of the themes. So right. I believe they're gonna, really, when it's not gonna be so much a battle against the Night King. Of course it is, but it's gonna be the like realization, hopefully, of like all this fruitless, fucking unnecessary destruction amongst themselves and amongst, the people that they're supposed to be protecting as the nobles. They're in this situation because they're the monsters, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, like, how much of a Dream of Spring are we going to get? I just imagine Tyrion walking around and they look at something that looks like a parliamentary meeting. You don't necessarily have a straight up thing like, oh, it's a constitutional monarchy now. They're not going to be
right. No, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we have to see, at least, I think that last episode that Dan and Dave are doing themselves that should be at least that episode, whether it's a couple months or a couple years or whatever later. We got to see some cleanup, because this is all about change. It's all about feudalism doesn't work. It's all, the like you mentioned, the pointless wars. This is about change. It can't go back to a monarchy with a fucking Iron Throne. I've been saying Danny will melt that down, or somebody will melt that symbol down. But it also can't be an overnight change to a constitutional republic, right? Like you said, it's got to be, a little bit of change. And I think we got a little hint of that with Marine when Danny said, Daria, you stay here while they elect their leaders.
The guy that said "fuck Marine."
Yeah, right, exactly.
But her heart was in the right place. Her brain was just not.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think we got to see a little bit of the aftermath. So they got to leave some time for that, and
there's going to be a kid. I mean, they mentioned it 7 times. They forgot to like Dan and Dave. That's one of the things. It's like, oh shit, did we foreshadow the kid? They're like, nope. We actually
right. Let's really hammer this home.
Actually, we said a whole bunch of shit about her not being able to have a kid. They're like, I'll have John say maybe that shit ain't true. Yeah. They mention it 7 times at the Dragon Pits, and they're like, all right, it's solid. I mean, because it's a saga, so it's multi-generational. I believe that my perfect ending is Tyrion walking with not only Sansa, who is a competent ruler that finally has all of the skills she's obtained through all these horrible events pay off, like the best those events could pay off. But she has traveled, only Tyrion's traveled as much as her. So she's been at the court with Cersei. She's been in the Vale. She's been now in Winterfell. She knows, you know what I mean? She knows how to play the game on a lot of different levels in there. So I think Tyrion, her in a little Lyanna,
right.
And just a dream of spring, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Let's hope it turns out right. But it just leads me to believe if they can sum this all up in 6 episodes, how are we going to get 2 more books out of it?
Yeah, exactly. That's because originally the idea was, a season per book, and then they split Feast for Crows up to 2 seasons. And the original plan was him to stay ahead of the show. And of course, that never happened. And it's been, that's where it did suffer ever since. But again, I do think they had probably a lot more material than we think. So, but yeah, as far as A Dream of Spring, I mean, we just don't know what he's got done or what he's taken from Winds to put in that, because I know he moves chapters around and all that kind of stuff. And okay, now I'll put this in the next book. It fits better there. So there's already probably some material there, but at least for the show, we'll definitely get the payoff for change, because that's it's a story. You have the beginning, the middle, and the end. You have to wrap it up with the point of the story, and seeing that pay off. So
yeah, we're in the final act. Whether you want to do 3 or 5, it doesn't actually even matter. It's in the final act, so I definitely agree. I mean, unless George is going to write a coma for spring, because I mean, it's going to take for fucking ever. But I mean, let's just hope for the best with all that. And I don't hold George as, I love him and I think that he is one of the best writers of our time. But I think he is his own worst enemy. I do tend to believe that if he had the material finished, it would be out. I think it would benefit him financially. I think it would benefit him because the show wasn't doing good, and it would make him look good. It'd be the perfect time for release. Also, I don't think that Dan and Dave have as many answers as we would think. And it's just personal opinion, because I don't think George has them. George has constantly ridden himself in the corners with his complexity. So, I mean,
I agree. And just to clarify, I don't think that he has both done. I was just kind of threw that out there as a joke, but I think essentially Winds is done. He's just reorganizing or whatever. But I was just saying, just to make that point, that I think that the last couple seasons, I mean, for example, you saw, the release chapter of Arya, that we saw that a little bit in season 6. So they have something. They have probably a lot more than we think, but we'll see.
They have the general outline. They know what has to happen, but you can see the big difference when Dan and Dave have to make the event happen, meaning they knew that dragon had to die. So then it was up to them to write how it happened. And maybe it's just my opinion, but I think that was some Scooby-Doo fucking nonsense.
I had the biggest problem with the whole change thing. And then, I mean, they tried to throw a little pier in there. Like, okay, you're at a little lake. There's not change or not that big on the fucking Titanic. There's no change that big on some little fishing pier, number one. And then how did they swim down and loop it around his neck? Just make the dragon slide and not actually sink in the water. But it was a better shot of his death, right?
But then the next episode they say, can they swim? And they go, no.
Exactly.
It's like, where's this? That's called.
So yeah, I definitely complained about those when those came out for sure.
I mean,
I'm not just gonna be blind. I'm not blindly loyal to anything. So
you got to be hype about this shit, man.
That's right.
But no, I mean, it's called a script supervisor, and they're there for continuity. It's like if I have this water in my right hand, like, and then we have to break for the day, they make sure that fucking water's there. If they say that whites can't swim, you have to say that whites, they don't show them swimming, and especially don't do it like right away. If you say they can't go south of the wall, don't be like, oh well, unless they do. I mean, it's a lot of people on that set, but I do want to quickly touch on some Star Wars stuff with you. You obviously hated the last.
No, I didn't see you guys there. I'm Justin Thomas, and I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did enjoy that video, make sure to check out some of our other videos, maybe right here, possibly right there. But make sure to subscribe right there, and we'll see you guys soon.
Where secrets lie in the border fires and the humming wires. Yeah, man, you know you're never coming back. Past the square, past the bridge, past the mills, past the stacks. On a gathering storm comes a tall, handsome man in a dusty black coat with a red right hand. Wrap you in his arms, tell you that you've been a good boy. He'll rekindle all the dreams that took you a lifetime to destroy. He'll reach deep into the hole, heal your shrinking soul, but there won't be a single thing that you can